In our headlines on this Wednesday, February 26th, here in South Korea. The number of newborns rose for the first time in 9 years last year, with 238,300 births in the nation, up 3.6% on year. Meanwhile, a critical minerals deal may be sealed between the US and Ukraine as payback for Washington's support of Kyiv's defense against Russia's invasion. And the White House has a new visa program called the Gold Card that offers green card privileges and a path to US citizenship at a price of $5 million. We start with some promising news on the local front. South Korea's birth rate and fertility rate both rose for the first time in 9 years last year, driven by more marriages and supportive measures. Our Lee Soo-jin covers the latest data.
The number of births last year in South Korea rose for the first time in 9 years, marking a rare and encouraging shift in the nation's long-suffering demographic crisis. Data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows that there were 238,300 births in 2024, up 3.6% compared to the previous year. This marks the first time since 2015 that the number of births in Korea saw an on-year increase. And the nation's total fertility rate, the average number of children a woman is expected to have in her lifetime, also rose for the first time in 9 years to 0.75 after it fell to its lowest annual figure of 0.72 in 2023.
This shift is driven by the post-COVID-19 rise in marriages and an increase in the population of women in their 30s. A survey also shows that compared to 2 years ago, attitudes toward childbirth and parenting have become somewhat more positive.
The official also said that as the number of marriages last year came to 222,422, the highest recorded since 2019, the number of births may continue to see an upward tick this year. The positive shift comes as the government implemented various policies last year, such as extending the duration of parental leave. Yoo Hae-mi, Senior Presidential Secretary for Low Birth Rate Response, said on Wednesday that the government will address policy gaps in childcare and housing while supporting families with multiple children to sustain the increase. And the number of births for just the month of December also rose 11.6% compared to the previous year. But despite the turnaround in the total fertility rate, it remains low by international standards, as South Korea is currently the only country with a fertility rate below 1, signaling a continued need for targeted efforts to boost population growth. The country saw a natural population decline for the 5th straight year, as the number of deaths once again outnumbered the number of births. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol delivered an hour-long closing statement at the Constitutional Court late Tuesday at the final hearing of his impeachment trial. Our correspondent Oh Seong covers his remarks and more.
President Yoon Suk-yeol said he would serve a shorter term and pursue constitutional reform to reduce executive power, to build national unity, dignity and security, as he delivered his final argument against his impeachment.
The Constitutional Court held President Yoon's 11th and final impeachment trial hearing on Tuesday, some 73 days after the National Assembly passed a motion to remove him from power following his December 3rd martial law order.
Standing as the last speaker of his trial, Yoon delivered a 67-minute statement to the 8-member judicial bench. He reiterated his stance that martial law was a one-off plea to the people, as the nation faced a state of emergency, largely prompted by legislative sabotage and budget cuts by the opposition party, which holds an overwhelming majority in parliament.
지난 2년 반 동안 오로지 대통령 끌어내리기를 목표로 정부 공직자 줄탄핵 그리고 입법과 예산 폭거를 계속해 왔습니다. 헌법이 정한 정당한 견제와 균형이 아니라 민주적 정당성의 상징인 직선 대통령 끌어내리기 공작을 그야말로 쉼 없이 해온 것입니다.
He argued that he'd kept cabinet procedures required to declare martial law and outlined global uncertainties that require executive attention. Yoon said if he were to resume his duties, he would pursue political reform and effective governance through constitutional amendments.
결국 국민 통합은 헌법과 헌법 가치를 통해 이루어지는 만큼 개헌과 정치개혁이 올바르게 추진된다면 그 과정에서 갈라지고 분열된 국민들이 통합될 것이라고 믿습니다. 그렇게 되면 현행 헌법상 자녀 임기에 연연해야 할 이유가 없고, 그리고 국정 업무에 대해서는 급변하는 국제 정세와 글로벌 복합 위기 상황을 감안하여 대통령은 대외 관계에 치중하고 국내 문제는 총리에게 대폭 위임할 생각입니다.
Still, the leader apologized for the confusion and inconvenience caused by his martial law decree. This comes as the ruling People Power Party endorsed constitutional revision to shorten the 5-year presidential term, as removing Yoon from office would prompt a snap election, which would favor the opposition party. If Yoon is not impeached, he would resume his duties immediately, with his term ending in May 2027. National Assembly Impeachment Panel co-chair Chung Chong-le said in his closing statement that the public has already rejected Yoon and urged the court to uphold impeachment.
President Yoon took the oath of office to uphold the Constitution and defend the nation. Yet he sent martial law troops to invade the National Assembly and trampled on the Constitution. The respondent no longer has the qualifications to remain as president. He is no longer the president in the hearts of the people.
During the 2 hours assigned to each legal team, the Assembly's panel also emphasised its grounds for impeaching the leader, arguing his martial law order was illegal and unconstitutional in both procedure and substance. Yoon's lawyers, meanwhile, continued to defend its legitimacy and legality, arguing that the alleged orders to drag out lawmakers from the National Assembly and arrest high-profile figures had not been given nor implemented. With the hearings concluded, the impeachment trial is now entering its final phase. For now, the Constitutional Court is likely to reveal its decision on around March 11th. In South Korea's past 2 presidential impeachment trials, the ruling came 11 and 14 days after the final hearings. But one variable that could affect the timeline is the court's verdict on Thursday on a dispute case over acting President Choi Sang-mok's decision not to appoint left-leaning Judge Ma Eun-hyuk as a Constitutional Court justice. If the court upholds the jurisdictional dispute and Ma joins the bench, the court will have to decide whether Ma would also deliberate on President Yoon's impeachment case. This could require more time for consideration, especially as Yoon's side might request a retrial process for the new justice to review and familiarise himself with the trial, pushing back the date of the ruling. 오수영, Arirang News.
And at the Parliament earlier on this Wednesday, rival lawmakers agreed to launch a special committee on national pension reform. Now, in a meeting presided over by National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, ruling People Power Party floor leader Kwon Song-dong and Opposition Democratic Party floor leader Park Chan-dae also agreed to further address the prospects of setting up such a committee this coming Friday during talks with acting President Choi Sang-mok. Now, aside from the Committee on Pension Reform, the rival floor leaders also agreed on 2 additional committees, one for climate-related initiatives and another for APEC summit preparations as Korea's city of Gyeongju prepares to host the annual multilateral gathering in November. In other news, following days of speculation, there is now talk about Ukraine and the U.S. being close to sealing a critical minerals deal within this week at the White House. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The United States and Ukraine are reportedly closing in on signing a critical minerals deal, which is considered key to ending the 3-year-long war in Ukraine. According to AFP citing a Ukrainian government official, the agreement could be signed as early as Friday. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, the official said that the 2 countries agreed on the terms of the minerals deal, with government officials from both sides working on the details. The official also explained that the draft agreement mentions Ukraine's security guarantees, but does not explicitly include the U.S.'s role in it. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump on Tuesday told reporters that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky wants to come to Washington later this week to sign the minerals deal. According to multiple sources, Zelensky's visit is scheduled for Friday, which coincides with reports of when the minerals deal may be signed. Trump also stressed the need for peacekeeping troops in Ukraine if a ceasefire agreement is struck. However, Russia has refused to accept any deployment of NATO troops. Former U.S. Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers, under the former Bill Clinton administration, slammed the minerals deal, pointing out that it's a clear departure from U.S. action in the past. In an interview with Bloomberg TV on Monday, Summers compared the Trump administration's minerals deal to that of the Treaty of Versailles, only it imposes a large sum of payment to the victims of aggression and not the aggressor. The Treaty of Versailles is a World War I peace treaty signed in 1919. The Allied powers, including Britain, France, and the United States, who won the war, imposed a huge war reparation on Germany. The minerals deal, if signed this week, will allow the U.S. to take 50% of Ukraine's mineral and natural resources revenues, worth $500 billion. But the deal would include not only revenue from rare earth, but also uranium, lithium, oil, gas, and even some port revenues. The deal also specifies that U.S. companies must hold 50% ownership of Ukraine's rare earth elements deposits. This will allow the U.S. to receive more than 3 times what it was given to Kyiv for its military and humanitarian support in the past 3 years. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And also in the U.S., a new visa program is in the works. The so-called Trump Gold Card will offer green card privileges and a path to U.S. citizenship at a price of $5 million. Our Samiljeol has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump plans to terminate the EB-5 immigrant investor visa program. Trump said Tuesday that the EB-5 program, which grants permanent residency to foreign nationals promising to invest in American businesses, will be replaced by a gold card system. This new pathway to citizenship would allow individuals to purchase residency for $5 million.
And wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy, and they'll be successful, and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people. And we think it's going to be extremely successful.
Trump said the new program could start in about 2 weeks. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick explained that the measure was introduced because the cost of investment for the EB-5 program was too low at around $1 million for investors that create at least 10 jobs.
It was full of nonsense, make-believe, and fraud, and it was a way to get a green card that was low-priced. So the president said, rather than having this sort of ridiculous EB-5 program, we're going to end the EB-5 program. We're going to replace it with the Trump Gold Card.
Trump has also initiated a probe that could result in tariffs on copper imports. On Tuesday, Trump instructed the Department of Commerce to examine copper imports, and if the probe uncovers evidence of dumping, the administration could impose tariffs or quotas in response. Trump's decision is part of his broader effort to expand his protectionist trade policies. In 2018, he used a similar investigation to justify tariffs on steel and aluminum imports and plans to bring them back next month. Lutnick said Tuesday that it is time for copper to come home, arguing that foreign competition has severely weakened the American copper industry, just as it did with steel and aluminum. Copper is vital for numerous industries, including defense, with the U.S. importing 45% of its supply, mainly from Chile and Canada. Although the U.S. was once the world's top copper producer, it now ranks 5th. Samiljeol, Arirang News.
Trade Minister Ahn Junggeun is visiting the U.S. for talks on tariffs. Starting Wednesday local time, Ahn is spending the remainder of this work week in Washington, D.C., meeting with relevant Trump administration officials to seek exemption from the 25% tariff on steel and aluminium imports slated to start on March 12th and exclusion from reciprocal tariffs set to go into effect in April. And is also expected to propose ways to enhance partnership in sectors such as shipbuilding and energy. NASA's mission to create a 3D map of the entire sky in partnership with Korea's Astronomy and Space Science Institute will start this Saturday, Korea time. The SPHEREx telescope will be launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. Once in orbit, the telescope will use wavelengths of invisible near-infrared radiation to map the universe, offering scientists unprecedented insight into its origin and more. This year, Korea marks 115 years since the execution of independence hero Ahn Junggeun, whose faith in freedom for Korea fueled his fight against Japanese occupation and its atrocities. That being said, a memorial museum bearing his name is reopening its doors, also just in time for this weekend's March 1st Independence Movement Day. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
An independence fighter who cut off the tip of his left ring finger with 11 others as a symbol of sacrifice to their nation. A patriot who assassinated Japanese General Ito Hirobumi, firing 3 bullets into his chest and abdomen in Harbin before being executed at Lushan prison. Marking the 115th anniversary of his death, the Ahn Junggeun Memorial Museum held a reopening ceremony on Wednesday. An expanded range of digital exhibits is part of the Patriot's ministry's efforts to renew the memorial museums of Korea's patriots. Yoon Bong-gil, Ahn Junggeun, and Baekbum Kim-gu, commemorating the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation.
Through introducing the latest digital content and immersive video rooms, visitors can now experience the life and independence movement of Patriot Ahn Junggeun in a more vivid and interactive way.
Ahn's commitment to the Enlightenment movement in Korea, his role in the Righteous Army movement, along with his long journey are well shown throughout the exhibition. But of course, the most noticeable part of the renewed exhibition is how it digitized major historical moments and lessons Ahn left.
If you put your hand on Ahn's handprint with his fingers cut off, it turns on the video on the wall, showing Ahn pulling the trigger of his pistol to assassinate Ito Hirobumi, letting visitors feel the atmosphere at that moment.
The museum recreated the courtroom as well, where Ahn explains why he shot Ito, citing 15 reasons based on trial records. In the reproduced video, Ahn also talks about a treatise on peace in the East, which he wrote while at Lushan prison until his execution on March 26, 1910.
I have always thought it has been difficult to convey why Ahn Junggeun shot Ito, the meaning behind it, and the ideals and dreams he envisioned. Through the renewal, I hope people will be able to easily understand Ahn's advanced philosophy on peace.
People will be able to enjoy the renewed Ahn Junggeun Memorial Museum starting March 1st, Independence Movement Day. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Korean calligraphy, that is the art of writing Hangul, is now a national treasure. And my colleague Ahn Sung-jin shares its appeal in this following report. To take a look.
A delicate brushstroke lands on the paper. These single strokes come together to create characters from the Korean alphabet Hangul. This is known as Hangul Seoye, or Hangul calligraphy. 94-year-old Chung Joo-hwan has dedicated more than 60 years of his life to practicing calligraphy, and is one of the first to practice the art form.
Hangul was easy to learn and memorize. It's also very scientifically made. Look at the beauty of these characters.
Calligraphy in Korea has used both Hanja, which are Chinese characters, and the Korean alphabet Hangul. But last month, Hangul Seoye was designated as a national intangible cultural heritage, recognizing its unique writing style using Korea's own alphabet, as well as its unique font and brushwork. Chung runs his own academy where he passes on his knowledge of calligraphy.
I like letters, but I also started learning calligraphy to control my mind more peacefully and cultivate a sense of virtue, which I think has been helping.
An old saying says that Seoye helps grow patience and train one's mind. Not only does this show the beauty of the written characters, but it also helps develop one's own character.
And calligrapher Lee Jung-ha feels Hangul is a better medium to convey meaningful messages.
The reason why I like Hangul Seoye is because I can convey emotions through characters that really represent our sound, since it is the Korean alphabet. That's why moving forward, I want to try everything I can using Hangul Seoye and find what I really can accomplish.
The Korea Heritage Service said it will provide support for scholarly studies and initiatives aimed at promoting the transmission of cultural heritage. Seoye is an age-old tradition, and with efforts like these to promote it further, this calligraphy could play a key role in sharing not only the Korean writing system but also its culture. Ahn Junggeun, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. As the deadline for the exemption of U.S. tariffs on Mexican goods approaches, negotiations are taking place to reach a mutually beneficial trade agreement. On Tuesday local time, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said discussions with the U.S. are underway, aiming to prevent the imposition of tariffs on Mexican exports. This follows a previous agreement in early February where both nations consented to a one-month suspension of tariffs set to expire on March 4th. The proposed U.S. tariffs include a 25% duty on all imports from Mexico. Mexico currently sends approximately 80% of its exports to the United States. President Donald Trump has stated that these tariffs are on time and on schedule to commence as planned. In response, President Sheinbaum expressed optimism about reaching a resolution, but has also indicated that Mexico is prepared to implement retaliatory tariffs if necessary. Germany's new chancellor-in-waiting, Friedrich Merz, is facing significant fiscal challenges in his bid to boost the nation's defense spending. Following his party's recent election win, Merz has prioritized bolstering Germany's defense infrastructure, especially in light of recent global tensions and shifting alliances. Merz had about 90 minutes of talks with outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Tuesday local time and discussed ways to circumvent strict restrictions on debt so he could spend more on the military. There's increased urgency to raise military spending due to concerns over the United States' potential isolationist stance under President Donald Trump and the need for Europe to assume greater independence for its security. However, efforts are impeded by the constitutional debt brake, which restricts federal borrowing to 0.35% of the nation's GDP. To navigate the debt brake constraints, Merz is exploring the establishment of a special defense fund, potentially amounting to 200 billion euros. In Chile, a massive power outage swept across Chile on Tuesday local time, leaving millions without power. The blackout, which affected 14 of the country's 16 regions, including the capital Santiago, was triggered by a failure in a 500 kilovolt transmission line in the Norte Chico region. The disruption caused widespread halt of public services, including traffic signals and businesses. Mining operations, the backbone of Chile's economy, were also impacted, with some major sites experiencing power losses. The Interior Minister ruled out cyber attacks as the cause, and authorities are working on recovery efforts. Venezuela is celebrating its first saint as Pope Francis on Tuesday authorized the canonization of Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez, known as the Doctor of the Poor. Born in 1864, Hernandez was a physician renowned for his dedication to the underprivileged. He died in 1919 after being struck by a car while obtaining medicine for a patient. Beatified in April 2021, his canonization date will be set in a forthcoming meeting of cardinals. The historic event sparked a surge in sales of religious items and literature related to Hernandez, reflecting his reverence among Venezuelans. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Today, the weather is warmer than yesterday. It rose to 7 degrees Celsius in Seoul today, and tomorrow it will rise up to 12 degrees, making it feel like early spring. As temperatures rise significantly during the day, frozen ice sheets can suddenly break in rivers or lakes. Please be careful in these areas. The atmosphere is very dry in most parts of the country except for the western parts. It doesn't seem like the dry weather warnings and advisories will be lifted soon. With strong winds, it is important to take extra precautions to prevent wildfires. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gwangju will start off at -1 degree, Chuncheon at -6 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 15 degrees in Daejeon and Gwangju and 14 degrees in Busan and Jeju. Starting with Jeju Island tomorrow, rain is forecast in some areas, especially on Sunday. It is expected to rain all over the country. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.